So we are finally here looking at the playoffs, and I honestly thought I was going to have to wait another day or two to record and upload this video, but honestly, with the news coming out that Jimmy Butler is not going to be available, as well as Zion Williamson in the last play-in games, I don't really think it matters because I don't care who wins in those two games. They're still going to lose in the first round. So because of that, there's no real point in me waiting any longer. Let me just go ahead and give you my playoff predictions. Before I do that, first things first, if you want to compete in a playoff bracket challenge, make sure you click the link in the description. Over in Bracketology, we have a playoff bracket challenge going on live right now. Go fill out your bracket. The winner at the end of the postseason run is going to win a grand prize, so go check that out. But if not that, at bare minimum, you can do is watch playoff games with me on playback.tv/Lowe's We'll be doing that literally all playoffs long. Now, with that out of the way, first round, Eastern Conference, first seed, Boston Celtics, and like I alluded to literally seconds ago, it doesn't really matter if it's the Chicago Bulls or the Miami Heat, Boston is going to win. Don't think I have to go into that much explanation. It would have been a bit more interesting, obviously, if Jimmy Butler was going to be available in 100%, but he's not, so that means that Boston is going to win. And the Celtics winning in 4 games should be a sweep. I don't think I have to explain why the best team in the NBA can beat up on a Miami Heat team without their best player in Chicago Bulls. I don't really think I have to do that much explanation. Next, we have the 4-5 matchup, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Orlando Magic, a series that many people are going to overlook, but certainly has a lot of implications on what potentially could happen in the upcoming offseason. The Cavaliers are trying to make up a disappointing postseason run last year as they lost in the first round against a New York Knicks team that really exposed a lot of weaknesses. The Cavaliers really overly dependent on Donovan Mitchell's shot creation and playmaking, and honestly, if it really wasn't Darius Garland, there really wasn't anybody else on the team that could generate any more points. The scary part about it is that might be the exact same problem this year. Sure, the Cavaliers had moments throughout the year, and sure, the record may not be the most accurate depiction of how good they are because they dealt with injuries literally all season long. However, the biggest concern that everybody had for the Cavaliers this season is the struggle with Evan Mobley from an offensive standpoint, and going up against the Orlando Magic, a defensive-oriented team is very switchable, versatile, athletic, can really present the same problems that the Cavaliers faced last season. Add on top of the fact that I do believe Banchero, as well as Franz Wagner. Wagner did not have the greatest season this year, but I do believe his ceiling and what he can produce offensively in this matchup is a bit higher because it favors him. Hopefully he can really produce at a level in which I believe he can, and if doing so, the Orlando Magic should be able to wrap up this series quicker than many people expect. I have the Orlando Magic winning this series in 5, but no more than 6 games. The series could go to 6 or 7 if Mitchell goes nuclear, but nevertheless, I think Orlando just defensively really shuts down a lot more options on what this team can produce from a position-to-position basis. Going on the other side of the bracket, we have the New York Knicks and Philadelphia 76ers. Very interesting matchup here because we really don't know where Joel Embiid is at in terms of his health. In that matchup against the Miami Heat, he didn't look 100%, to be fair. And honestly, even at 80%, he still should be able to overwhelm a lot of teams in the NBA. However, this is a Knicks team that from a defensive standpoint, they work as a unit. They work in unison, a lot of chemistry and continuity. And that's something that Embiid has shown throughout his entire career he struggled with. And that's something that he even struggled with against the Miami Heat once they put him in a zone. Because of that, as well as the potential of Tyrese Maxey having to pick up a little bit more offensive load in a postseason setting, and we've never really seen that, really leaves a lot to be desired from the Sixers team going up against a really sound defensive unit out in New York. And on top of that, I do believe Jalen Brunson is going to put the world on notice who he is as a first option in a postseason setting. We saw a little bit of that in his last year in Dallas. Really was able to carry a lot of that momentum over with the Knicks, and ever since Julius Randle has been down, he's really flourished into a really good player. At the end of the season, I would argue he was fringe top 10, and I do believe that's going to be a problem for a Sixers team that honestly just don't have the answers whatsoever. Now, there may be some concerns from some people that Randle won't be available, so what exactly are the Knicks going to do to supplement that? Don't know if you all know, but that's a good thing. Julius Randle does not need to be playing in this series whatsoever. In all honesty, it actually will benefit the Knicks if he does not play any postseason at all, because I really want the world to see what this team looks like in totality. I do believe Randle puts a cap on them, and I would go as far as to say if he was available, this series will probably be closer than what it actually is. I do believe the Knicks are going to be able to pull this series out in 5, maybe 6 games. I just don't see how the Sixers are going to be able to make it past the first round if Embiid is not 100% healthy, and he certainly didn't look like that against the Miami Heat. And then we have the Milwaukee Bucks and the Indiana Pacers, and boy, is this going to be very, very Interesting. In large part because we don't know the full status on Giannis yet. There's a lot of concerns circling around his injury. He sustained a calf injury at the end of the regular season that will definitely carry over into the playoffs, and more than likely he's going to miss the entirety of the first round, especially because there is some rumors around the concept that that calf injury may be a precursor to an Achilles injury that you certainly don't want to have flare up at all. So because of that, I am going to discuss this series under the assumption that he's going to be out for the entire series, but honestly, even if Giannis did play and he wasn't 100%, I still think the Pacers have a really good chance of beating them. The Indiana Pacers matched up really well with them during the postseason when Giannis was healthy. This is a Milwaukee Bucks team that is really, really bad defensively. Losing their best defender is going to make them even worse. They don't have any POA to stop Tyrese Halliburton from having a fantastic and potentially historic series. But more importantly, Damian Lillard just hasn't looked like Dame of old throughout this entire year. I have a hard time believing that in a playoff series that will change. And then that doesn't even take into consideration Doc Rivers, which, he's Doc. More than likely, the Bucks will get upsetted in the first round as the third seed will fall to the sixth seed. Second year in a row that the Bucks are getting knocked out in the first round, so a lot of questions and concerns there, but I do believe the Pacers will win in 5. Now over to the Western Conference, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. And again, I don't really see any scenario where either the Sacramento Kings and New Orleans Pelicans can win, as both teams are going into that series not at 100%. As the Kings are already missing Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter, Zion more than likely won't be available in this series either. And there's a very interesting conversation going on about Brandon Ingram as well, as he didn't play the final minutes against the Los Angeles Lakers in that first game of the play-in. So I don't really see how either one of these teams can match up well with the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder are just way too talented. They're going to have the best player in the series, regardless of who they match up with Shea. Because of that, I think the Thunder should handle business in 4 or 5 games. On to a series in which I believe will be the best series in the first round, 4-5 matchup, Los Angeles Clippers and Dallas Mavericks. There's a lot of things to talk about in this series. More than likely, I will touch upon a lot of other players and legacies and things of that nature on my main channel. However, we are talking about a Mavericks team that features Luka Doncic, who has been putting up historic numbers against the Clippers for like the better part of the last 5 years now. The stat line is historic from a scoring and facilitating standpoint. They don't really have the proper matchups to stay in front of Luka, and even their best option in Kawhi, unfortunately, news has broke that he's probably going to go into this series not 100% himself. So that's also going to present another question and concern as well. Add on top of the fact that even though, yes, this same Mavericks team has consistently lost to the Clippers in previous years in the postseason, however, this year the Mavericks have a much better team, better second option in Kyrie, or better overall team in my opinion they normally have had in the past, especially taking into consideration injuries from Porzingis in those other years. And overall, I just think that this is a worse version of the Clippers than we've seen in years prior. Kawhi and PG are worse versions of themselves. Kawhi still may not be 100%. James Harden has free falled in the latter half of the season. And Russell Westbrook, even though he is back and he does bring them a lot of energy, and it would be interesting to see him being implemented, potentially even in the starting lineup against this team, because I do believe the Clippers can get away with playing small against the Mavericks. I think Luka goes on a historic tear in this series. Don't be surprised he puts up ridiculous numbers, and don't be surprised if the Mavericks are able to upset the Clippers in 6 games. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of Luka talk in this video. Going on the other side of the bracket, we have the Nuggets and Lakers. Another really great series. I think a lot of people are going to be conversing about this, and I'm going to put my Laker bias aside, and it's going to pain me to do so because, man, it's going to be really hard for the Lakers to pull this out. I know a lot of people have been discussing and talking about, the Lakers and how they have the ability to make some adjustments to win. Be very mindful that their head coach is Darvin Ham. You keep talking about adjustments. Darvin Ham doesn't do that very well, so I don't really know how that's going to happen. The one thing that is very favorable for the Lakers, however, is that last year they did lose in a sweep. However, every game was very, very close. This year, LeBron is looking significantly better than he did last year. The supporting cast members from an offensive standpoint also look a little bit better than last year as well. And I do believe with improved LeBron, a better supporting cast offensively, the Lakers might be able to win a game or two. And I don't think it'll be that crazy to believe that this series will get pushed to 6 games. However, as much as I love my Los Angeles Lakers, I can't really see this team being able to compete with the Denver Nuggets any longer than 6 games, in large part because Vanderbilt is not available, which is going to really put a ceiling on what this team can do defensively, but also, and more importantly, Nikola Jokic is going to go into the series as the best player in the NBA. Jamal Murray is probably going to rise against the Lakers because we don't really have an option defensively for him. And because of that, there's still going to be moments and even stretches throughout this series where just off of pure talent and shot making alone, the Denver Nuggets should be able to overcome the Los Angeles Lakers and beat them in 6. In our final first round matchup, we had the Timberwolves versus the Phoenix Suns. My goodness, the Western Conference. It's going to be some good hoops out west, man. I can't even hold you. The Timberwolves are going to really put a lot of people on the map. They're going to show people who they really are. And I do believe them being able to be a Suns team that is star-studded, that many people may not be familiar with their game, it will definitely change the landscape about how a lot of people talk about some of those players out in Minnesota. Anthony Edwards, I project he's going to have a really great series on both sides of the floor. Matches up really well with a lot of other guards on the opposing side. And I think that goes for a lot of players on Minnesota's team. On a defensive standpoint, they're really going to restrict what this Suns team can do offensively. I do question and concern about what exactly we're going to receive from Kevin Durant. Having Rudy Gobert more than likely being able to constantly roam around, stay near the lane, is certainly going to disrupt what KD can do and have him settle for jump shots while trying to shoot over Jaden McDaniels, which is something that he doesn't want to do and something that we've seen him struggle with literally for the past 2 postseason runs. I will be victorious in the back and forth between KD and myself because I told him he's not going to be able to get any pressure on the rim. He's probably going to settle for a bunch of jump shots and he's probably not going to make them. But hey, man, we'll see, man. We'll see. Nevertheless, I never really bought out in a big 3 with the Phoenix Suns, in large part because I never thought they were going to get the best or the most out of Bradley Beal. And even if they did, that was still going to be limited. In large part because of what this team is lacking is a passing and playmaker, and Yusuf Nurkic on the defensive side of the floor just looks really, really bad. I have the Minnesota Timberwolves winning in 5 games, and if the shots aren't falling, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually sweep the Phoenix Suns. If the Suns are able to make their tough shots, which is all possible, maybe push it to 6, but nevertheless, I still have Minnesota winning. Going on to the second round, and I think the Eastern Conference is going to be still very easy to answer. We have the Boston Celtics going up against the Orlando Magic. Though Orlando has presented a bit of a problem and conundrum for the Boston Celtics over the past 2 regular seasons, I don't believe that's enough. The inexperience will start to show against this team, and more than likely the Celtics will be able to win in 5 games, possibly 6 if the Celtics don't take this matchup serious, because they do match up really well with Orlando, and they can make things a little bit more difficult for Tatum and Brown from a scoring perspective. But nevertheless, I just don't think Orlando has the offensive firepower to keep up with a Celtics team, even if Tatum and Brown are struggling. So I have the Celtics winning in 5. On the other side of the bracket, we have the New York Knicks versus the Indiana Pacers. And man, call me a Knicks fan, but I think the Knicks are going to advance and go to the conference finals. Once more, I just feel like there's a bit more dynamic play from the Knicks on both sides of the floor. They can keep up with Tyrese Halliburton much better than the Bucks were able to do in the first round. While on the other side of the floor, Brunson's probably going to be fantastic. While Siakam defensively more than likely won't be able to be as impactful as he normally is because how much the floor is going to be spaced all throughout the entire series. I do believe that there could be a possibility of overly depending on Brunson's shot creation, but if this was a team that showed a little bit more resistance than the Pacers, then maybe that would be a problem. But the Indiana Pacers have been an egregiously bad defensive team literally all season long. I don't think that's going to change at all, and I think the Knicks just being able to be impactful on both ends will be the difference maker, and we have the Knicks in the conference finals for the first time since the Patrick Ewing era. So I have the Knicks winning that series in 6 games. On to the Western Conference, and boy, the Mavs might actually beat the Thunder. Bro, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm a believer of Luka, bro. I think he's really built like that. I truly do. Now, to be fair to the Oklahoma City Thunder, one of their biggest weaknesses is that they normally get beat up inside from bigger teams. That won't be a problem. Chet's lack of size and even inexperience also won't be a problem going up against other bigs who aren't that experienced themselves. But I do believe there is something to be said about just having 2 elite level shot creators. J-Dub is not on the level of Kyrie Irving yet, and I do believe that Luka is a better shot creator and just all-around offensive player to Shea. Defensively, however, I do believe it's going to be very interesting to see how the Thunder defend Luka, especially when he starts mismatch hunting. This is a Thunder team that doesn't mind switching as much, but you want to make sure you keep Lou Dort on Luka as much as you possibly can and just don't give up on the switches. Because trust me when I say, regardless of how competent of a defender you think players like J-Dub and Shea may be, Luka's going to just torch him. It doesn't really matter. The biggest question mark for the Oklahoma City Thunder is how many minutes you're going to get out of Josh Giddey. that's going to be very questionable, and who's going to be replacing him. And can you really rely on the three-point shooting from all the positions that this team has been thriving on all year long? I need to see Lou Dort make threes in the postseason. I have to see it. And all those other young players, I got to see them make their threes. I have to just see that, and they will be tested against the Dallas Mavericks. Because of that, I have Dallas winning in 6, but I do think that's going to be a very interesting series nevertheless. And then we have another interesting series, the Denver Nuggets versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Last year, this series probably would have been a bit more interesting if Jaden McDaniels was healthy. This year, he is. So now we get to see what's going on. The thing that really concerns me with this series is what Anthony Edwards is going to look like. Many people have bought into the hype. Understandably so. I understand the type of player that he produces at, but a top, 5 or 8 defense, having the personnel to really slow him down, him settling for potentially tough contested 2-pointers is not the route to go whatsoever. And I do believe the offensive woes and limitations of the Timberwolves will start to catch up from them. On the defensive side of the floor, yeah, this team does have the proper personnel to match up really, really well against the Denver Nuggets. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. What exactly will Jokic look like against a team that's going to play heavy minutes of Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert? I'm going to just be honest with you all. Even slowing down Jokic is still going to be producing at a level that is more than suffice enough to match up an equal level of production, if not exceed it, from a Timberwolves team that also isn't that great offensively. Pairing tough shot making with Jamal Murray, great three-point shooting, floor spacing, and just all-around ball movement and player movement. I honestly don't believe the Nuggets offense is going to take as much as a hit as many people believe that it will. And honestly, I do believe because of the passing, playmaking, and player movement, it's going to be really hard to commit 2 players on Jokic all series long because he's more than likely going to exploit it. And more times than not, you're going to see a lot of matchups where it's just Rudy Gobert defending Jokic out there. And honestly, I'm going to pick Jokic in that matchup. Just going to be honest with you. So because of that, I'm going to have the Nuggets winning in 6 games. That could be a 7-game series, though, just depending on what version of Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns we see offensively. But I'm probably going to lean with the Nuggets in 6. Which then leads us to the conference finals. The Boston Celtics going up against the New York Knicks. Now, I've been trying to make this part of the bracket interesting. It's still not going to be interesting. I think the Boston Celtics are just far ahead, better than every team in the Eastern Conference. But hey, man, if you're the Knicks, you still come out on top. You put on display for the world that you're a legit team, maybe a suitor in the upcoming free agency, or maybe a disgruntled star will want to be on your team because you're able to make it to the conference finals. I think this is where the magical run stops for the Knicks. That Celtics team has way too many players that they can just throw at Brunson, slow them down, while on the other side of the floor, the Celtics can just beat you offensively from practically every single position. It's actually pretty scary. Now, it will be interesting to see like what Tatum is going to look like being defended against OG Anunoby, but I still don't think that's going to make a difference. I have the Boston Celtics getting out of the Eastern Conference, beating the Knicks in like 5, maybe 6 games. I just don't see how the Knicks can compete. And then finally, we have the Denver Nuggets and the Dallas Mavericks. Man, this is going to be a really great series. A series of offensive weaponry that we've probably never seen before. A series that will be a display of just passing, playmaking, scoring, a level of IQ that will be something to marvel at. The entire Western Conference, my goodness, how great of a run this would be for Luka if he went through that gauntlet of team. And even for the Nuggets, I mean, it's just all around great hoops. However, with that being said, I'm going to lean towards the Nuggets because the Mavericks really don't have an option, like literally at all, for Jokic. And on top of that, they don't have an answer at all for Jamal Murray. Luka's going to get his, and honestly, if I'm Mike Malone, I'm really focusing on Kyrie to make sure that the second scoring option isn't flowing at levels in which it would make them unguardable, and I believe that's going to be the game plan. You know, expect Luka to put up historic numbers. Like, I actually expect by the end of the run, Luka is going to put up some of the craziest numbers we've ever seen in NBA history in the playoffs, but I don't think it's going to be enough to be a Denver Nuggets team that is a well-oiled machine, which is why I have the Nuggets making the finals once more against the Boston Celtics. I know that many of you all think that I glaze Jokic a lot. I know that many of you all think that I hate Jason Tatum. I might. But I'm going to be honest with you, bro. I am a firm believer of 2 things. I believe that some of the same demons that the Boston Celtics normally face will start to be shown throughout this series. And because of that, I think this Boston Celtics team is going to look completely different from what they look like throughout the entire Eastern Conference playoffs, because there just isn't a team in the East that can really challenge them and push them to their brink now that Miami has been eliminated. And because of that, this will be probably too deep into the playoffs for them to really try to exercise and figure things out while having a bit of a cushion, because because trying to really work things out in the middle of a series against the Denver Nuggets just isn't going to work out for you whatsoever. I do believe Tatum is going to struggle pretty immensely, especially when shown double teams and making him a passer. Jrue Holiday is going to have to show all of us that he's going to be a consistent shooter in the postseason. Similar things can be said about Al Horford as well. And I just believe overall offensively, there's going to be a noticeable regression on what this Celtics team can produce on a night in, night out basis against that Denver Nuggets defense. If Tatum decides to, clean a lot of things up and start attacking Jokic in space and putting his head down and getting to the basket, things can change. But unfortunately, that's kind of been the whole shtick with Tatum and this Celtics team for the past 3 or 4 years now. They purposely make things much more difficult for them because they just don't think the game to the same level as other teams that have won championships over the past 3 to 4 years now. While on the other side, we have a Denver Nuggets team that just executes to a T. Jokic is going to be a mismatch problem for Porzingis and Al Horford all series long. Jamal Murray might struggle a bit, but I've seen a lot of guards torch Derek White and Jrue Holiday, especially when you have nice spacing and a really good screen setter. This is a team that can still get torched by a lot of athleticism at the point guard position, and that's something that Jamal Murray has, as well as tough shot making. So I don't believe that Murray's going to be as impactful as he normally is, but still more than suffice enough to prevent themselves from losing in this series. KCP, MPJ, and Aaron Gordon, offensively, I don't expect much. This is going to be a series where everybody on the defensive side of the floor is going to have to pick up a lot of slack because they're probably not going to be producing that much offensively because how well this Celtics team is on the defensive side of the floor. But a lot of easy looks are still going to be generated because of who Jokic is, and I do believe we're in for a masterclass in the finals from Nikola Jokic. Because of that, I have the Denver Nuggets winning in 5. Hopefully this video isn't too long. It probably will be long because I went through the entire series. And if anything really changes, I will probably give an update on a round-to-round basis. But again, let me know your playoff predictions and your bracket predictions by clicking the link in the description and join the Bracketology Challenge. Whoever wins that challenge will win a grand prize. So trust me, you definitely want to join. But again, if you just want to watch playoff basketball games with me literally every single day throughout the entire postseason, make sure you check me out at playback.tv/Lozroom. But if you just want to send me hate comments, just put it down low as well. Just do that as well. I don't really care. But until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.